the Starlite supermaterial. In 1986, a British hairdresser and self-taught chemist named Maurice Ward unveiled a discovery that astonished some of the world's most formidable scientific and military institutions. A heat-resistant material he named Starlite. Demonstrations were nothing short of extraordinary. On live television, Ward coated a raw egg with his white putty-like formulation, then subjected it to the ferocious blue flame of a blowtorch. The egg remained cool to the touch, its interior entirely uncooked. Starlite's creator declared it could withstand temperatures in excess of 10,000 degrees Celsius, a heat so staggering that it matched the infernos at the heart of nuclear detonations. Ward, working out of a modest laboratory in Hartlepool, systematically performed tests that pushed the boundaries of known material science. Researchers from the UK Atomic Weapons Establishment, the Ministry of Defense, and even NASA conducted their own classified examinations. Samples of Starlite reportedly survived exposure to high-intensity laser beams, simulated nuclear flash, and temperatures that vaporized all conventional substances. Technical documents described how, under intense electromagnetic energy, the substance neither ignited, melted, nor released toxic fumes, a property that could have rewritten the safety protocols of aerospace, military, and nuclear industries overnight. The evidence supporting Starlite's revolutionary capabilities was extensive and thoroughly documented. Reputable scientists, military officials, and national television audiences witnessed live demonstrations where objects encased in Starlite emerged unharmed from conditions that should have been fundamentally impossible to survive. Ward's own statements referenced confidential government contracts and persistent requests from unnamed agencies to acquire the formula for national security purposes. Behind closed doors, negotiations unfolded with multinational conglomerates, defense contractors, and powerful government agencies, all seeking exclusive rights to the technology. The threat posed by Starlite to the established order was fundamental. If deployed in aircraft, tanks, or nuclear reactors, it could nullify entire arsenals and economic models built on the vulnerabilities of conventional material science. The consequences would reach into every sector shielded by secrecy and long-standing profit, rendering obsolete the arms race, the business of destruction, and the precarious balance of deterrence. Systematic suppression followed. Ward refused to patent Starlite, citing fears that his invention would be classified, abused, or simply erased. He determined that revealing even a partial recipe could allow governments or corporations to reverse engineer the technology, violating his moral responsibility as its sole custodian. The majority of dealings with scientific institutions and military officials were conducted under absolute secrecy. No samples were ever released for independent, unsupervised study. Over the years, evidence suggests government agencies classified test results and pressured Ward through legal threats and offers of vast sums of money. Keenly aware of the consequences, Ward retained all samples and documentation in private, refusing every demand to relinquish control. When Maurice Ward died in 2011, he took the secret of Starlite to the grave. No records, no formula, and no detailed technical documentation have ever surfaced. Family members publicly confirmed that the recipe remains lost, perhaps forever. All that remains are fragments of televised demonstrations, classified government reports, and persistent rumors that somewhere, within the classified vaults of national security agencies, fragments of the supermaterial are still being analyzed, reverse-engineered, and systematically concealed. Was Starlite the greatest materials breakthrough of the 20th century, systematically erased to maintain the existing balance of power? Or is its legacy a cautionary tale of how revolutionary technology vanishes not through accident, but as a direct result of its staggering consequences? The Chronovisor of Father Ernetti. In 1960, an Italian Benedictine priest and respected scholar named Father Pellegrino Ernetti stunned the world with a singular, impossible claim. He had developed a machine, now known as the Chronovisor, that allowed direct viewing of historical events as they truly unfolded. Unlike psychic visions or speculative reconstructions, Ernetti's device purported to systematically capture electromagnetic remnants of the past, enabling users to observe phenomena such as ancient Rome's Senate debates and, most controversially, the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. The core technology was described as an amalgamation of cathode ray tubes, oscilloscopes, and a sophisticated array of antennas tuned to detect and reconstruct signals allegedly imprinted onto the fabric of space-time itself. Ernetti, operating in the rarefied intellectual circles of 1960s Venice, conducted his clandestine experimentation with a documented team of collaborators. Among those named was the legendary physicist Enrico Fermi, whose expertise lent the Chronovisor venture extraordinary credibility. According to detailed accounts, scientific tests were performed in the presence of ecclesiastical officials and government researchers. Technical descriptions referenced quantum resonance, electromagnetic field manipulation, and photon pattern recognition, language that systematically echoed the vocabulary of classified military and aerospace research projects of the era. The device itself was configured within a shielded laboratory to prevent electromagnetic interference, with ongoing documentation confirming a series of successful viewings of events ranging from ancient Roman spectacles to lost musical performances by Greek playwrights. The evidence surrounding the Chronovisor's existence extended beyond mere rumor. Ernetti delivered detailed technical documentation to senior Vatican authorities, historians, and government officials. Written transcripts of supposed visual recordings cataloged everything from the rhetorical style of Cicero to the architectural details of vanished temples. Diagrams and schematics appeared alongside cryptic correspondence referencing extraordinary quantum consequences and the dangerous implications for both national security and theological dogma. Ernetti recorded personal testimonies from fellow researchers, each attesting to the authenticity of the device and the veracity of observed phenomena. Photographs of the Chronovisor's complex lattice of wires, consoles, and display screens were circulated among trusted associates, with multiple independent reports from visiting scientists attesting to systematic demonstrations conducted in controlled conditions. The turning point arrived when Vatican authorities, alarmed by the staggering potential consequences of such a device, intervened with classified directives. The Chronovisor, they asserted, violated fundamental principles of free will, privacy, and ecclesiastical authority. Its capacity to directly observe historically and biblically documented events posed threats to the very core of institutional control, promising to upend centuries of narrative, doctrine, and historical consensus. The machine's technology was deemed dangerous, not merely for its technical complexity, but for the catastrophic shifts it could trigger in the balance of theological and governmental power. Systematic suppression followed with efficiency and gravity, reserved for matters of existential national security. Vatican officials confiscated all records, components, and documentation pertaining to the Chronovisor. Witnesses were placed under strict secrecy orders, testimony was classified, and numerous researchers vanished from public life. Ernetti himself was subjected to relentless questioning, pressured to recant his claims and abandon development. Subsequent inquiries found entire archives emptied, laboratories shuttered, and the institutional response tightly coordinated between church and state officials. Rumors persist that elements of the technology remain locked within Vatican vaults, subject to ongoing classified analysis. The official line became denial, with public statements declaring the device a hoax or a misunderstood technical experiment, despite volumes of evidence to the contrary. Father Ernetti died in 1994, taking with him the full technical knowledge required to reconstruct the Chronovisor. No complete schematics have ever surfaced. No working device has been reliably documented since. What remains is an extraordinary trail of evidence, technical reports, cryptic correspondence, and whispered testimony from authoritative witnesses. The theory persists that Ernetti's collaborators, some with backgrounds in quantum physics and classified military research, systematically erased every trace of their work to prevent the device's catastrophic consequences from reshaping society itself. Does the secret legacy of the Chronovisor still echo within classified laboratories and church archives, concealed by institutions whose power depends upon controlling the narrative of history itself? Or has the technology been lost forever, an impossible machine whose revolutionary consequences doomed it to vanish into the shadows of systematic suppression. The Phasor phone, voice privacy machine. In the winter of 1978, a group of American inventors engineered a revolutionary device capable of systematically scrambling voice communications with an efficiency and clarity that rendered clandestine eavesdropping virtually impossible. Known as the Phasor phone, the apparatus promised an unprecedented level of secure telephonic privacy, instantly attracting the attention and ultimately the intervention of the National Security Agency. The device was conceived in a modest laboratory, constructed using specialized oscillators, encryption modules, and digital modulation circuits. The inventors, whose names became systematically obscured in public records, managed to create a machine that could digitally alter the electromagnetic signature of spoken words. When deployed, it rendered intercepted transmissions incomprehensible, effectively violating all conventional protocols for government wiretapping, intelligence surveillance, and systematic monitoring. Initial tests produced staggering results. Technical documentation described how, through quantum phase manipulation and complex frequency hopping, the Phasor phone could maintain crystal-clear communication between verified users while defeating every known form of analog and digital interception. Evidence of the Phasor phone's extraordinary capabilities mounted rapidly. News outlets presented live demonstrations showcasing its secure call scrambling technology, featuring interviews with leading telecommunications researchers and coverage by national television networks. Written reports from respected engineers referenced successful trials conducted under controlled conditions, with authenticated peer review and oversight from major corporate officials in the communications sector. The device's technical journals detailed its sophistication, including systematic phase diagram analysis, signal correlation tests, and electromagnetic vulnerability assessments. Testimony circulated among government contractors and independent researchers who cited not only the technical impossibility of unauthorized decryption, but also the profound consequences for military, corporate, and civilian applications. The gravity of the discovery and its implications for national security could not be understated. With the Phasor phone, conventional wiretapping and intelligence surveillance architectures faced technological obsolescence. The ability to systematically suppress or decode encrypted conversations represented a fundamental power of government agencies. Its sudden evaporation incited panic in high-level circles. Documents surfaced indicating that immediate directives were issued to classify the technology. NSA agents conducted home visits with direct warnings to the inventors and their associates, imposing secrecy orders under threat of severe legal and criminal consequences. The incident was documented across classified channels, with evidenced correspondence referencing catastrophic consequences for existing national security infrastructure should the technology proliferate. The systematic suppression unfolded with relentless efficiency. Legal challenges prevented the commercial release of the Phasor phone. Patent applications were seized under classified protocols, and all public demonstrations were terminated. For several months, a shadow campaign coordinated by the NSA kept the inventors under surveillance, freezing all production and stifling dissemination of the technology. The device itself became a proprietary object, locked away within the classified vaults of government institutions. Only a handful of prototypes remained, each cataloged as critical national security assets. The inventors, despite public outrage and fleeting journalistic advocacy, were forced to abandon all efforts to push for open deployment. After significant pushback from the civilian scientific community and a barrage of media coverage, the secrecy order was rescinded. But the damage was systematic and irreversible. The Phasor phone was never commercially released, never integrated into mainstream communication systems. Its documentation remains classified. Interviews with those involved reveal consistent patterns of intimidation, evidence destruction, and legal obstruction. To this day, no rival device matching its technical capabilities has surfaced. The lingering question is as irrevocable as it is haunting. Did the Phasor phone represent the last, best hope for genuine, unbreakable voice privacy in a world systematically surveilled by corporate and government interests? Or did its suppression serve as the model for a broader campaign where revolutionary technological advances are quietly erased, protecting only the interests of those who control the invisible infrastructure underlying our reality? John Canzias's saltwater-fueled engine. In 2007, a retired American radio engineer named John Canzias unveiled a phenomenon that defied the most fundamental laws of conventional chemistry. He had developed a technology that could set salt water on fire. The spectacle was extraordinary. A glass vial filled with ordinary seawater, exposed to radio frequency waves, igniting and burning with a sustained visible flame. In laboratories and on national television broadcasts, the impossible occurred. Water, the element presumed to extinguish fire, was itself becoming fuel. Canzias, a resident of Erie, Pennsylvania, initially sought solutions in the field of cancer treatment. Working late into the night in his makeshift laboratory, he systematically experimented with high-frequency radio transmitters in the hope of selectively targeting cancer cells. During one technical trial, he observed an anomaly. Seawater subjected to a certain electromagnetic frequency began to bubble vigorously, releasing hydrogen and oxygen gases in proportions that could be ignited. The flame produced was hot enough to melt metal and sustain itself as long as the radio frequency energy continued. Documented experimental footage showcased the phenomenon: saltwater burning, yielding temperatures far exceeding those of standard combustion reactions. The process, described by researchers as radio wave-induced bond cleavage, appeared to violate deeply embedded chemical paradigms. The evidence was both public and meticulously documented. Chemists from major universities, including Penn State, conducted independent analyses confirming that the radio frequency device liberated hydrogen from the water, providing a combustible fuel source with staggering potential. Spectroscopic studies, energy calculations, and compositional assessments corroborated the claim. Canzias's apparatus, through sheer electromagnetic manipulation, enabled a process that rendered seawater an instantaneous and scalable fuel. Reports were disseminated among researchers, military officials, and Department of Defense representatives, all of whom recognized the revolutionary and destabilizing implications for energy production and national security. Interest escalated at the highest levels. Department of Defense officials visited Canzias's laboratory, expressing intense interest in the systematic potential of radio wave water cracking for military and civilian fuel independence. National media coverage presented the invention as a pivotal breakthrough, one that could eliminate reliance on fossil fuels, nullify the economic foundation of global energy cartels, and render obsolete the vast infrastructures built upon oil, gas, and coal. Academics provided detailed technical commentary on the electrochemical resonance, modeling the process in terms of quantum bond dissociation and electromagnetic resonance phenomena. Yet, the promise of the saltwater engine represented an existential threat to established power structures. The unprecedented prospect of generating fuel from an inexhaustible supply of seawater struck at the heart of the global energy industry and its intricate network of political, corporate, and governmental interests. Economic models based on artificial scarcity and strategic control over energy resources faced annihilation. Reports emerged that Canzias was offered lucrative buyouts and silent partnerships. Offers systematically declined in favor of public demonstration and open scientific inquiry. Systematic suppression soon followed. As the invention's notoriety increased, so did the pressure from regulatory bodies, corporate interests, and shadowy intermediaries. Canzias's research project stalled amid legal entanglements, patent obstacles, and sudden evaporation of funding streams. Government agencies classified numerous technical records, while corporate entities issued veiled threats and proposed confidential settlements to withdraw the technology from public view. In 2009, John Canzias succumbed to complications from leukemia. His full apparatus never commercialized. The systematic exploitation of his invention, frozen in bureaucratic immobility and legal ambiguity. To this day, no comprehensive patents have been brought to public fruition. The story of the saltwater-fueled engine stands as a stark reminder. Was Canzias's electromagnetic resonance phenomenon truly the key to unlimited clean energy? An invention systematically erased by forces whose power depends on the maintenance of global scarcity? Or did the technology vanish with its inventor, leaving only a handful of footage, classified reports, and a lingering question about how close humanity has come, and how quickly it can be forced back from the precipice of revolutionary change? The suppressed EV-1 electric car. In 1996, General Motors deployed a vehicle that systematically shattered every preconceived notion about electric transportation: the EV-1. The car could accelerate from 0 to 60 in under 9 seconds, offered a range greater than most gasoline competitors, and incorporated cutting-edge regenerative braking and lightweight composite chassis construction. Charging stations were built across California and Arizona, and drivers celebrated an era where fossil fuel dependence might finally become obsolete. The context was historically significant. By the mid-1990s, emissions regulations and mounting public concern over environmental degradation forced auto manufacturers to innovate or face obsolescence. The EV-1's technology drew on fundamental advances in battery chemistry, electromagnetic drive systems, and digital vehicle control mechanisms. Major automotive engineers, coordinated with Department of Energy researchers, developed proprietary induction charging hardware and sophisticated battery management algorithms that optimized performance across temperature extremes and prevented catastrophic failure. Evidence of the EV-1's extraordinary viability was overwhelming and meticulously documented. Over 800 vehicles entered service through lease-only programs, every unit meticulously monitored via proprietary GSM telemetry. Systematic reports by independent automotive researchers and regulatory agencies referenced virtually unprecedented reliability and consumer satisfaction. Test results from the University of California's Advanced Transportation Institute established the car's electromagnetic drivetrain as 89% efficient, far exceeding any contemporary internal combustion vehicle. Customers, ranging from scientists to corporate executives, provided testimonials confirming the vehicle's daily range, acceleration, and almost total absence of required maintenance. An ecosystem of support, education, and technical dissemination grew rapidly, bolstered further by academic conferences documenting not only the technology's immediate successes, but its fundamental potential to shatter the status quo of global energy consumption. The turning point began not with technical failure, but with systematic opposition from entrenched interests. Industry memoranda and confidential legal correspondence revealed a coordinated campaign of regulatory, corporate, and governmental resistance. Oil conglomerates, national energy agencies, and factions within the auto industry identified the EV-1's electromagnetic propulsion as an existential threat. National security agencies and trade organizations cited infrastructure vulnerability, economic destabilization, and strategic energy needs in classified communications. Documentation surfaced revealing closed-door meetings and systematic lobbying to roll back zero-emissions vehicle mandates. Leaked industry studies projected staggering losses to the petroleum sector and detailed risk management strategies for containing electric transportation dissemination. Systematic suppression followed swiftly and with singular efficiency. General Motors abruptly notified all lessees that their contracts would not be renewed. Despite mass protests, legal petitions, and national media coverage, every EV-1 was recalled, systematically stripped of operational components, and transported to undisclosed locations. Investigative reports and satellite imagery confirmed the crushing and destruction of nearly every manufactured unit. A handful escaped public knowledge. These remain immobilized by proprietary software locks and classified as non-serviceable by federal directive. No independent entity was ever permitted to purchase, retrofit, or research the EV-1's propulsion algorithms or battery systems. Engineers and executives involved in the project signed comprehensive non-disclosure agreements under threat of legal and financial annihilation. The few remaining EV-1s serve as inert museum pieces, powertrains removed, communications hardware extracted, and onboard diagnostic interfaces wiped of all proprietary telemetry. Their existence is a haunted reminder of a technology that could have transformed environmental policy, automotive engineering, and global energy infrastructure. Instead, systematic institutional pressure ensured its eradication and concealment. Is the ghost of the EVIs one evidence of a broader campaign, one in which systematically suppressed knowledge is trapped forever behind corporate and governmental secrecy? Or is it a warning, a glimpse into the staggering consequences of unleashing technology that disrupts the foundational powers that govern our world? Victor Schauberger's Repulsine machine. In the shadowed aftermath of World War II, the world's most advanced governments systematically sought technologies so revolutionary and so dangerous they could challenge the very core of physical law. Among these was the Repulsine machine, engineered by Austrian naturalist Victor Schauberger, who claimed to have discovered the secret to nature's own propulsion, an implosion engine capable of generating free energy and anti-gravity effects that violated all conventional understanding. Schauberger, born in 1885 in Austria, spent decades observing the flow of water in pristine alpine creeks. He asserted that natural vortex movements possessed a hidden power, a principle he called implosion technology. By meticulously mimicking the spiraling patterns of moving water and air, Schauberger constructed devices based not on explosive outward force, but on inward spiraling energy that concentrated and amplified power. His Repulsine machine, a gleaming disc-shaped turbine, stood at the center of this extraordinary claim, a device designed to harness electromagnetic vortices and produce propulsion without burning fuel. Technical evidence accumulated rapidly. Witnesses, engineers, military officials, and government researchers were called to demonstrations in Austria and Germany. The Repulsine, built from copper and precisely calibrated alloys, consisted of concentric rotor discs set within a double-walled hemispherical chamber. According to detailed documents, the machine generated staggering rotational speeds and electromagnetic fields, causing abrupt temperature drops and producing lifting forces that appeared to nullify gravity itself. Army officers reported tactile sensations of air pressure anomalies and saw the machine vibrate and float during tests. Schauberger documented its operation using technical diagrams referencing centripetal wave formation, dielectric polarization, and vortex-induced energy extraction. Collaborators from German aeronautical institutes joined Allied military research units in recording the Repulsine's anomalous performance. As the war closed, systematic interest in Schauberger's implosion technology intensified. American intelligence operatives, acting under classified directives, seized Schauberger and his research team, relocating them to a heavily secured facility in Texas. The stated intent was advanced propulsion development for national security. Schauberger, under constant surveillance and psychological pressure, was instructed to build prototypes for U.S. military and intelligence agencies. All research drafts, original machines, and technical blueprints were classified or confiscated. Witness reports from engineers indicated that numerous Repulsine tests occurred behind locked doors, and that U.S. military officials deemed the findings of fundamental interest, with possible deployment implications for aerospace, military transportation, and energy production. The threat posed by the Repulsine machine was existential and systemic. Its capacity to generate power from natural electromagnetic phenomena violated the foundational profitability, and thus the control of fossil fuel economies and established military doctrine. Free energy, anti-gravity, and environmental purity struck at the heart of institutional hegemony, threatening to destabilize industries and governments whose power, profits, and influence depended on artificial scarcity, control, and environmental degradation. After years of classified work, Schauberger was released from U.S. custody in 1958 and returned to Austria, impoverished, betrayed, and utterly broken. He died within months, having systematically warned friends and family that his life's work had been stolen, modified, and sequestered for military purposes. No functioning Repulsine ever returned to public hands. All devices and documentation vanished, classified under national security restrictions, their contents unavailable to independent researchers and academic scrutiny. Is Victor Schauberger's Repulsine engine now gathering dust in classified vaults, studied by shadowy agencies in the hope of replicating or weaponizing nature's most fundamental forces? Or has the knowledge vanished entirely, lost to a world systematically determined to betray those whose ideas violate the economic and technological status quo? The consequences of this suppression are staggering, a reminder of how revolutionary technologies, no matter how thoroughly demonstrated and documented, can be systematically erased when they threaten to liberate humanity from the constraints imposed by profit, secrecy, and power. The Invention Secrecy Act cases. In 1951, the United States government enacted a law so sweeping and consequential that its ramifications persist, classified to this day. The Invention Secrecy Act. This legislation empowered authorities to systematically suppress any patent application deemed a risk to national security, burying untold numbers of revolutionary technologies in layers of institutional secrecy and bureaucratic obstruction. The law emerged in the crucible of the Cold War, as quantum advances in radar, propulsion, and communications technologies multiplied. So too did anxieties over dangerous inventions falling into the hands of adversaries. The Patent Office, working under strict governmental and military oversight, established a classified process. Any patent of possible military interest, anti-stealth tech, anti-missile guidance, electromagnetic countermeasures, was subject to immediate review and potential suppression. Inventors, regardless of stature or intent, were systematically subjected to investigative scrutiny by panels of government scientists and military officials. Evidence of the Act's extraordinary power quickly accumulated. In 1977, Budimir and Desanka Damjanovic invented a technology to detect incoming missiles, exploiting radar blind spots through sophisticated algorithmic patterning. The utility was staggering, offering a fundamental leap in defensive capabilities. Their patent, submitted through normal civilian channels, triggered an abrupt national security review. FBI agents arrived at their residence, delivering formal secrecy orders and compelling them to cease all communication with civilian researchers. The process was far from unique. Technical literature documents thousands of cases since 1951, from anti-heat-seeking spray for aircraft to quantum magnetic resonance detection systems, to power generation devices leveraging fundamental electromagnetic anomalies. Entire domains of research, radar, propulsion, communications, and advanced materials fell under the Act's authority. For many inventors, the consequences were devastating. Secrecy orders not only confiscated patents, but systematically barred individuals from publishing, discussing, or exploiting their own discoveries. Equipment was seized, laboratories locked, and years of research vanished into classified archives. Some, like the Damjanovics, fought back, enduring decades-long legal appeals and congressional inquiries. Rare victories resulted in financial compensation, but more often, the proceedings ended in silence and protracted obscurity. Allegations surfaced of intimidation, FBI home visits, threats of criminal prosecution, and the systematic monitoring of all correspondence and professional activity. Inventors working on dual-use technologies found themselves blacklisted, locked out of research communities, and forced to abandon careers to avoid further sanctions. Secreted away in restricted vaults, many technologies subjected to the Invention Secrecy Act remain unknown outside a classified circle. Declassified records confirm that, as of 2025, over 5,000 patents are under ongoing secrecy orders, never published, never commercialized, never subject to public or academic scrutiny. The rationale always invokes national security, yet technical summaries and leaked correspondence reveal far more fundamental motivations: maintaining strategic advantage, sustaining corporate monopolies, and protecting the economic interests deeply interwoven with the military-industrial complex. The turning point for the public narrative came with sporadic investigative reports and congressional hearings. Whistleblowers emerged, describing the systematic denial of due process, the permanent disappearance of scientific evidence, and the existential frustration of witnessing world-changing technologies remain classified indefinitely. Official responses cited vague risks of catastrophic consequences and national destabilization. Terms so broad, they applied to any invention capable of disrupting the existing power structure. Patent applications for advanced communications, wireless energy distribution, quantum encryption, and revolutionary propulsion systems joined the thousands already buried by the Act. Today, the full scope of the Invention Secrecy Act remains a fundamental unknown. Its classified archives, a monumental ledger of lost opportunity, forgotten genius, and suppressed advancement. Are the technologies suppressed under this act fundamental breakthroughs systematically concealed for genuine security? Or are they revolutionary advances whose consequences would forever alter the global distribution of power, profit, and control? As long as secrecy orders remain in force, their contents may never be known, leaving one of history's most systematic campaigns of suppression a living, classified shadow over the progress of human technology. The water-powered car of Stanley Meyer. In 1984, a self-taught inventor named Stanley Meyer unveiled what he declared to be a fundamental technological breakthrough: a water fuel cell capable of powering an automobile using nothing but ordinary water. His demonstration was documented on camera. A custom-built dune buggy traveled the streets of Ohio, fueled exclusively by tap water that, according to Meyer's systematic explanations, was split into hydrogen and oxygen, burned in the internal combustion engine with extraordinary efficiency. The claim, bold and impossible by conventional standards, was supported by technical documents detailing processes labeled electromagnetic resonance, quantum bond dissociation, and systematic electron excitation. For years, Meyer worked out of a modest workshop in Grove City, Ohio, systematically developing his technology while filing more than 40 patents. Technical diagrams described how electromagnetic pulses induced molecular decomposition of H2O molecules, yielding a constant stream of hydrogen fuel. Researchers, military officials, and energy sector representatives attended live demonstrations. Evidence surfaced of successful, repeatable operation. Catalytic converters glowing without toxic emissions. Engine diagnostics revealing fundamental efficiency, and spectroscopic analyses authenticating the absence of petroleum derivatives. Meyer's invention attracted staggering attention. The United States Department of Defense, private energy consortiums, and scientific researchers sought the rights to his fuel cell. Fortune 500 oil executives attended private showings. Technical journalists, aerospace engineers, and even military strategists investigated the device, seeking to replicate or commercialize the underlying process. Meyer was offered multi-million-dollar investment buyouts. He systematically refused them all, declaring in interviews that his device would eliminate the artificial scarcity imposed by those controlling global energy supply. The conflict was immediate and fundamental. Meyer's water as fuel system represented an existential threat to global energy, economic, and governmental infrastructures. Its commercial deployment would systematically nullify the profits and power consolidated by the petroleum industry, electric utilities, and militaries reliant on conventional fossil fuel logistics. Technical analyses by third-party researchers reference the fundamental consequences of unlimited accessible hydrogen, warning that energy monopolies could be systematically rendered obsolete. Meyer privately claimed to have been subjected to systematic surveillance, intimidation, and legal obstruction from both government agents and corporate interests. Systematic suppression descended rapidly. Meyer was sued repeatedly. Allegations of patent fraud, technical misrepresentation, and breach of contract followed every public demonstration. Laboratory equipment was confiscated. His patents were subjected to classified review under national security orders. During a 1996 dinner meeting with two Belgian investors who reportedly pressured him to sell the technology, Meyer collapsed. He ran from the restaurant declaring, "They poisoned me," before dying hours later. The official cause was ruled an aneurysm, but friends, family, and researchers have systematically contested the verdict. Key documentation, prototypes, and technical records vanished in the aftermath. The water fuel cell was never independently produced or commercialized. Investigative journalists and technical reviewers found systematic gaps, missing records, empty workshops, and classified government files. Decades later, the story of Stanley Meyer remains a cautionary testament to the dangers faced by radical innovators. His invention, whether viable or fraudulent, was never systematically disproven, only suppressed, erased from public discourse, and locked away beneath layers of classified documentation and unresolved mystery. Was Meyer's water-powered car a stage fraud, or was it the solution to energy independence, systematically expunged by the very institutions whose existence depended on maintaining the lines between scarcity, profit, and technological revolution? The technology's fate, like that of Meyer himself, remains buried in secrecy. The final question persists. What price must inventors pay for daring to violate the established order? And what opportunities are lost when fundamental advances disappear without a trace? Project HARP, Ionospheric Experimentation. In the remote expanse of Alaska, a government research facility emerged in the 1990s that would systematically ignite decades of controversy, conspiracy, and classified investigation. The High-Frequency Active Auroral Research Program, known globally as HAARP. The official premise was benign, an array of transmitters designed to systematically study and manipulate the Earth's ionosphere, ostensibly for advancements in communications and atmospheric science. The context was one of technological ambition and military intrigue, built by collaboration between the U.S. Air Force, Navy, and DARPA. HAARP's facility incorporated a staggering official budget and technical staff. Its transmitter array, composed of 180 high-frequency antennas, systematically generated electromagnetic waves powerful enough to heat, ionize, and even restructure the upper layers of Earth's atmosphere. Technical documentation referenced ionospheric heating, electromagnetic pulse modulation, and systematic wave-front propagation, terms consistent with both advanced scientific research and classified military operations. The project's stated goals included enhancing radar systems, developing new communications protocols, and investigating the fundamental physics of the ionosphere. Evidence of HARP's technological capabilities, however, extended far beyond academic curiosity. Independent atmospheric researchers and civilian radio operators monitored systematic anomalies, sudden disruptions in global communication networks, unexplained electromagnetic interference, and atmospheric phenomena that violated conventional ionospheric models. Technical journals and field reports documented erratic behaviors in auroral activity, increases in geomagnetic storms, and the appearance of artificial plasma clouds at high altitude. Published findings indicated extraordinary electromagnetic field manipulation, triggering national security concerns across allied and adversarial governments. Civilian opposition became a defining factor in the public narrative. Persistent allegations range from weather control and mine manipulation to direct causal links with natural disasters. Researchers, journalists, and conspiracy theorists spotlighted the facility's documented capability for global electromagnetic influence, referencing classified communications, technical expert testimony, and patterns of anomalous atmospheric activity coinciding with periods of high-frequency transmissions from HAARP. Legal battles and public protests demanded full transparency, systematically opposed by government officials who consistently invoked national security as justification for maintaining classified operational records. The technological and geopolitical threat posed by HAARP was systematic, fundamental, and deeply controversial. Its theoretical potential to control weather patterns, disrupt communications, or influence human cognition could fundamentally upend the balance of power in military, intelligence, and economic arenas. Sophisticated electromagnetic weapon systems, if developed from HAARP's research, would pose existential risks to national sovereignty, global infrastructure, and the integrity of civil society itself. Systematic suppression and concealment of the project's true scope followed as public scrutiny escalated. Key operational records, experimental data, and technical reviews remain classified under national security restrictions. Civilian requests for independent oversight were systematically denied. Leaked communications indicate that research data was compartmentalized and subjected to ongoing internal audits, supervised by defense agencies and external consultants specializing in electromagnetic warfare. HAARP's experimental protocols and technology transfers have never been fully outlined, and components of the facility remain inaccessible to all but a handful of cleared officials. Today, the HAARP facility continues to be the subject of investigation, speculation, and systematic secrecy. Is HAARP a benign center of atmospheric research, or the cornerstone of a new generation of electromagnetic weaponry and weather manipulation platforms? Has its classified experimentation crossed the threshold into direct control of global atmospheric and communications infrastructure? Or does it remain merely an extraordinary research outpost doomed to inspire suspicion for as long as its technologies remain systematically concealed? The final question persists. In a world driven by the invisible consequences of electromagnetic technology, can the truth of HAARP ever be revealed? Or was the project designed from the outset to remain forever hidden, its capabilities, intentions, and consequences classified in perpetuity by those for whom systematic control is both a mandate and a fundamental prerogative? Cold War Mind Control, Project MKULTRA. In the crucible of the Cold War, the Central Intelligence Agency initiated one of the most systematically suppressed technological campaigns in modern history, Project MKULTRA. The project's extraordinary claim was simple yet staggering. By leveraging chemical, electromagnetic, and psychotronic methods, the agency could control, manipulate, and reprogram human minds, creating a generation of programmable operatives and subjects whose wills could be systematically erased and rewritten. The context was one of fundamental global paranoia. Between the 1950s and 1970s, national security agencies across the United States and its allies sought radical advances in psychological warfare and brain control. MKUltra, governed by the CIA's Technical Services Division and led by Dr. Sidney Gottlieb, encompassed more than 150 sub-projects. Testing occurred in lab facilities, military installations, and hospitals, with subjects ranging from military personnel to unwitting civilians. Technical documents referenced electromagnetic field induction, quantum resonance, and systematic neurochemical programming. Experiments included exposure to psychoactive substances, induced hypnotic states, and application of electrical fields to specific brain regions. The evidence surrounding MKULTRA was dense, disturbing, and meticulously documented. Congressional investigations in the 1970s revealed systematic funding for non-consensual testing. Chemicals, electromagnetic devices, sonic weapons, and fields of research that included remote brainwashing and psychotronic assault. Testimonies emerged of psychiatric patients subjected to days of electroshock, exposure to unknown drugs, and forced ingestion of psychoactive compounds. Technical reviews referenced fundamental violations of ethics and law, including the destruction of patients' memories, the erasure of personality identity, and engineered psychopathologies. The threat posed by MKUltra was existential, not only to individual autonomy, but to the principles underpinning democracy and civil society. The system proposed by classified agency memos rendered human will obsolete, threatening to upend legal, medical, and philosophical models of choice, responsibility, and consciousness. Technical engineering of behavior, induced through chemical and electromagnetic means, defied the established order by creating programmable assets for government use, fundamentally violating boundaries between self and state. Suppression and systematic cover-up followed in lockstep. In the mid-1970s, following public outrage and congressional inquiry, the vast majority of MKUltra records were ordered destroyed. Key documents were burned, remaining archives classified under national security directives. Researchers, witnesses, and subjects found themselves silenced by legal threats, intimidation, and forced amnesia protocols. Congressional hearings and legal battles yielded only fragments of the truth, with investigators systematically denied access to essential evidence. Surviving documents referenced psychotronic experimentation and remote induction, but most records vanished from the historical ledger. The agencies involved denied, obfuscated, and reclassified details, all under the looming justification of protecting national security. Even today, the legacy of MKULTRA is shrouded in unanswered questions and unresolved trauma. Former subjects and researchers continue to surface, providing new accounts of systematic neuroprogramming, classified device testing, and encounters with technologies that remain outside mainstream scientific comprehension. Technical blueprints for psychotronic weaponry, electromagnetic mind manipulation, and remote behavior induction appear sporadically, almost always attached to security restrictions that stifle investigation. Was Project MKULTRA the blueprint for technologies that can systematically erase and rewrite the human mind? Or are its true consequences forever lost, buried under decades of classified suppression, leaving the world shadowed by the possibility that the most fundamental aspect of existence, consciousness itself, remains vulnerable to extraordinary manipulation? As long as the classified vaults remain locked, the ultimate consequences of MKUltra's suppressed knowledge linger, a chilling testament to how power, secrecy, and technology systematically conspire to alter the very fabric of what it means to be human. Throughout the annals of modern history, the systematic concealment of radical innovation and lost technologies reveals a pattern as undeniable as it is unsettling. Each of these suppressed breakthroughs, beyond the boundaries of conventional science, beyond the reach of public discourse, serves as irrefutable evidence that technological progress is not solely the product of discovery, but of permission. The prevailing narrative is not one of inevitable advancement, but one of sanctioned limitation and deliberate erasure. The stories presented here do not merely recount isolated incidents of forgotten ingenuity. They unveil a unified phenomenon, the relentless exercise of power in shaping what is allowed to exist. Governments, corporations, and shadowed authorities, in their pursuit to maintain profit, stability, and supremacy, have systematically transformed revolutionary knowledge into classified secrets, orchestrated cover-ups, and institutionalized enforced ignorance. The consequences are fundamental, ensuring that the trajectory of human civilization remains bound to the interests of those who benefit most from secrecy, control, and scarcity. This is not the loss of opportunity alone. It is the construction of a reality carefully shaped by layers of classified protocol, economic suppression, and perpetual threat. The pattern is unmistakable. Technologies that promise abundance, autonomy, or fundamental change are either dismantled, locked away, or forever consigned to classified archives. The evidence, technical documentation, eyewitness testimony, and the persistent intrusion of the impossible into the margins of history confirms that suppression is not the exception, but the rule. The greatest tragedy lies not in what has been erased, but in the chilling implication of what is still withheld. Every systematic act of concealment becomes another barrier between humanity and its true potential, another demonstration that the reality we inhabit is meticulously engineered to accommodate structures of power, not the fullness of what is possible. In the final analysis, these 10 stories reveal a deeper order, one in which knowledge itself is the most coveted and contested resource. Until the machinery of classified suppression is laid bare, the world will remain divided, not by what is known, but by what is allowed to be known. And the lingering question, echoing across decades of lost technologies, is whether humanity will ever reclaim the hidden inheritance of its own forbidden genius.